I'll just make sure.
Very upbeat.
I like
Is he
that.
like this all the time?
I like
He
that.
is.
Man,
Really lovely to meet you, and I'm a huge fan of yours, and I felt so touched by your mutual story and how where sort of the dichotomy between your success and what happened during that time of COVID. Can you talk me through how did it feel to sort of let so many people into your intimate life? Was that easy, or could you not say no?
I mean, it was not easy. It was difficult, but it was ultimately something that we decided was the best, not just because of documenting those moments, but because of what it could do for other people. Yeah. What it could do for people to see the real duality of life play out, and to see what it's like for a person who is seen in the public eye as one thing, and the real version of that, a person who may be sick or a caregiver of a person who is sick, to see that play out and us not even knowing what the outcome of any of those moments would be individually or collectively braided together as a story.
So, how did you feel about your cancer returning at the time where so much success was coming to Jon and to both of you, really?
Yeah, we were both having this big moment in our creative lives and our creative work, and we were in a place of looking toward the future and excited about all the things to come. But so often happens in life, we had a diagnosis or a rediagnosis in my case that imploded those well-laid plans. And having been through this before, I learned the first time around that, to cling to what was, to cling to those plans for the future is a recipe for disappointment and discouragement. And so I think, that experience of getting sick at that particular moment in our lives forced us to be open to reimagining how everything was going to work. And within that act of reimagination, there was lots of difficult moments and heartbreak, but there were also these unexpected invitations to reshuffle our priorities, to recommit to our creative work in new ways, and ultimately to commit to each other in a much deeper way.
One expression from you said that moved me almost to tears, when you said you wish you could take the pain away. And I think that the whole film is around this. You could really see you sort of being in pain and almost afraid to enjoy your own success. How did you deal with sort of letting that part of your life through into this sort of portrait of the two of you?
Sometimes if you go through something, it's easy to know how to respond. Sometimes you're learning as you go. And this was very much that. You learn as you go through it. And I didn't have a sense of what the moment really was while it was happening. All I knew is that we had to keep on forward with the right intention. And how do you set intention? Well, for us, creativity. Yeah. The way that we can come together a lot of times is through the creative act. The creative act is an act of survival, and a way to connect that to envisioning the future and setting intentions of the future. Whether it's working towards the symphony, whether it's the paintings that she was doing, whether it was the lullabies that I was writing that, some became songs, whether it was us creating our home and the way that she built the inside of the home to reflect our lives, and the way that we've connected the dots with people in our lives to be this sort of, even that as a creative act. Yeah. All these things you're building, they don't exist, and then you manifest them through the vision of your divine creativity. That's like a real thing. And that setting of intention does something that is hard to explain.
I want to talk to you about the Late Show with Stephen, obviously, and all the stuff. I have to say, the show throughout COVID and throughout the sort of really kept me sane, and I used to watch it on YouTube every night, and he kept you on even though you didn't have the crowd, the audience. How did you feel through those days?
Whoa, that
this?
was a tough time. And not obviously, my friend Steven and the band, which wasn't on during that time, but Steven and I having that rapport was great, just to have a chance to check in the midst of everything. But then, we're checking in with each other, and millions of people around the world are watching it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that was a cool thing to see how it reflected on others, and gave people a human moment in the pandemic, a moment where they could kind of check in with us, and then also check in with themselves. And that's the beauty of that. And that's, I think, what this film is ultimately connecting the dots of. It's like, this is what we're going through, but everybody is going through some version of that. Everybody's going through some, or will confront the triumphs of life and the tragedy of life. And that duality of life is the human condition.
Yeah, we saw that you worked on the music for Soul, the Disney, the brilliant Disney animation. Any plans to work on further animations or further sort of narrative movies?
Definitely.
Anything
We have
you can
a
tell
lot.
us?
I don't want to say because it's not time, but we have stuff in the works. Even Suleika and I have some things in the works.
Wonderful.
Beautiful to create and always make music for animation, especially because, something like Soul was for kids, but it was for everybody. And I think something about animation is multi-generational.
Wonderful. Really, such an honor to meet you both. And as I said, I'm an absolute huge fan of your music and you yourself. So thank you so much for letting
Much
us
love.
into your lives and
Thank
sharing
you.
it with us. Thank you.
We in the zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys. Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys.